You have never once used willpower to tie your shoes. You just do it, thousands of times, without a single conscious decision involved. MIT researchers wired up the brains of rats running the exact same maze every single day, and after a few weeks of repetition, they found something strange. The parts of the brain responsible for decision-making had gone almost completely quiet. The maze hadn't gotten any easier. The rat's brain had simply stopped being involved. That's what a habit actually is, a decision your brain got tired of making, so it quietly stopped making it at all. Which means the book that finally changes the habit you're still fighting isn't really a book about discipline. It's a book about how to get your own brain to go quiet on purpose, aimed at something worth repeating. I ranked these by how much they actually change the habit you're still wrestling with 6 months from now, not by how many copies they sold. And for each one, I'm going to break down the actual ideas inside. Not just the title and a one-line summary. And the number 1 pick isn't a habit book at all, it's not even trying to be. Number 10. The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. Hardy's core argument, built from decades coaching entrepreneurs and studying self-made millionaires, is that success was never the result of one big decision, it's the invisible math of small, consistent choices compounding until the results become undeniable, long after the original choice is forgotten. His key concept is the compound effect. Small, smart choices, repeated consistently over time, produce a result wildly disproportionate to how small the choice actually felt. And Hardy argues the effect stays invisible for most of the timeline, which is exactly why people quit right before the curve finally bends. A concrete example he gives. Hardy tracks 3 friends starting from the exact same weight. One changes nothing, one adds a small daily surplus of junk food, and one cuts a small amount and adds a short daily walk. And 6 months later the gap between all 3 is dramatic, even though no single day's choice, in any of their lives, ever felt significant enough to explain it. Link to grab this one is in the description, timestamped below. Number 9. Tiny Habits by B.J. Fogg. Fogg's core argument, built from years running the behavior design lab at Stanford, is that motivation is unreliable and was never worth building a system around, and the real lever for lasting change is shrinking a behavior until it's small enough to need almost none of it. His key concept is the Fogg behavior model, B equals MAP. A behavior only happens when motivation, ability, and a prompt all show up at the exact same moment. And Fogg argues most people try to raise motivation, the least reliable variable in the equation, when the far smarter move is shrinking the behavior until ability stops being a barrier at all. A concrete example he gives. Fogg teaches himself to floss exactly 1 tooth, immediately after brushing, anchoring the new behavior to a habit that already exists, and celebrating the moment he's done it. And within a few weeks he finds himself flossing every tooth without ever once setting a goal to increase the difficulty. What makes this book different from the compound effect is that Hardy is proving that small actions compound into large results over time, while Fogg is working one step earlier, showing you exactly how to install one of those small actions in the first place, using anchors and instant celebration instead of willpower. Link is in the description. Number 8. Better Than Before by Gretchen Rubin. Rubin's core argument, built from her own habit experiments and hundreds of interviews, is that there is no single habit formula that works for everyone, because people fall into fundamentally different psychological types, and a strategy that works brilliantly for one type backfires completely on another. Her key concept is the 4 tendencies. Upholders, who meet outer expectations and their own expectations with roughly equal ease. Questioners, who only follow a habit once they've personally decided it makes sense. Obligers, who show up reliably for other people but struggle to show up for themselves alone. And rebels, who resist any expectation, even a self-imposed one, the moment it starts to feel like an obligation. And Rubin argues most habit advice quietly assumes everyone is an upholder, which is exactly why it fails for the other 3 groups. A concrete example she gives. Rubin, an upholder, can simply decide to exercise and do it, then realizes her husband is an obliger who skips the gym alone every time but never once misses a session when a trainer is expecting him. And once she reframes his failed habit as an accountability problem instead of a willpower problem, he finally sticks with it. What makes this book different from Tiny Habits is that Fogg is engineering the mechanics of a single behavior anyone can use, while Rubin is arguing those same mechanics land completely differently depending on which of 4 psychological types is on the receiving end of them. Links in the description. Number 7. Hooked by Ni Eyal. Eyal's core argument, drawn from years studying the most habit-forming consumer products on Earth, is that habits aren't accidents, they can be engineered deliberately using the exact same loop, whether the product is a slot machine or the app sitting on your home screen. His key concept is the hook model, 4 steps that repeat in a loop. Trigger, an external cue or an internal feeling that starts the loop. Action, the simplest possible behavior taken in anticipation of a reward. Variable reward, a payoff that isn't identical every time, which makes it far more compelling than a predictable one. And investment, something the user puts into the product that quietly makes the next trigger even more effective. And Eyal argues that once this loop has run enough times, the trigger stops being external altogether, the habit itself becomes the trigger. A concrete example he gives. Eyal breaks down how checking a social feed becomes automatic. An internal trigger like boredom prompts a swipe. The swipe delivers a variable reward of new content, and leaving a comment counts as investment, quietly increasing the odds of getting pulled back later. And he shows the entire loop can run start to finish without the user ever consciously deciding to open the app at all. What makes this book different from Better Than Before is that Rubin is helping individuals build habits on purpose for themselves, while Eyal is showing how companies build that same loop into a product deliberately, often without the user ever realizing a habit is being installed in them. Link is in the description. Number 6. Willpower by Roy Baumeister and John Tierney. Baumeister and Tierney's core argument, built from decades of psychological research into self-control, is that willpower behaves like a muscle, a finite resource that gets measurably weaker the more it's used in a single day, and that decline, not weak character, explains most habit failures by evening. Their key concept is ego depletion. Resisting one temptation leaves less self-control available for the very next one, even if the 2 decisions have nothing to do with each other. Which is why a stressful, self-controlled day at work so often ends in a broken diet or a skipped workout at night. A concrete example they give. In a study, participants forced to resist a plate of fresh cookies and eat radishes instead give up on an unsolvable puzzle far faster afterward than participants who were simply allowed to eat the cookies, showing that the effort spent resisting the cookies had already drained the willpower the puzzle needed. What makes this book different from Hooked is that Eyal is explaining how an outside loop pulls a behavior out of someone, while Baumeister and Tierney are proving that the internal resource required to resist that pull is limited and predictably runs out. Links in the description. Number 5. Switch by Chip and Dan Heath. The Heath's core argument, built from surveying case studies of successful large-scale change efforts, is that change fails less often because people are lazy and more often because well-meaning changemakers appeal to logic alone, while ignoring the emotional and situational forces actually driving the behavior. Their key concept is the rider, the elephant, and the path. The rider, the rational, planning side of the mind, which can see the destination but is easily overwhelmed. The elephant, the emotional, instinctive side of the mind, which supplies all the energy for movement but resists anything that feels effortful. And the path, the surrounding environment, which can make a behavior easy or nearly impossible no matter what the rider decides. And the Heaths argue lasting change requires directing the rider, motivating the elephant, and shaping the path, while most change efforts only ever address the rider. A concrete example they give. A hospital trying to get doctors to wash their hands more often sees zero improvement from posters and reminders aimed purely at the rider, until researchers place a petri dish showing bacteria cultured from an unwashed hand right next to the sink, an image that hits the elephant directly, and hand-washing compliance jumps almost overnight. What makes this book different from willpower is that Baumeister and Tierney prove internal willpower is a limited resource, while the Heaths argue the smarter move is designing around that limit entirely, shaping the environment and the emotional trigger, so willpower barely needs to be spent in the first place. Link is in the description. Number 4. Indistractable by Ni Eyal. Eyal's core argument, written years after Hooked, largely as a response to it, is that most distraction isn't caused by outside temptation at all, it's a symptom of an uncomfortable internal state, and the technology getting blamed is usually just the easiest available exit from that discomfort. His key concept is internal triggers versus external triggers. People try to fight distraction by blocking notifications and deleting apps, external triggers. When the real driver is almost always an internal trigger, boredom, loneliness, or stress, that a phone happens to numb faster than sitting with the actual feeling ever could. A concrete example he gives. Eyal times how long it takes before he reaches for his phone during a moment of boredom at his desk, and traces the urge backward to an uncomfortable feeling that arrives seconds before the reach, not to the phone itself. And once he addresses that feeling directly, the reach for the phone stops happening nearly as often. What makes this book different from Switch is that the Heaths are shaping an external path to make good behavior easier and bad behavior harder. While Eyal is arguing that no amount of environmental design stops a habit whose real trigger is an uncomfortable internal feeling that was never actually dealt with. Links in the description. Number 3. The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. Duhigg's core argument, built from years as a business reporter investigating why some habits change instantly and others never do, is that every habit, without exception, runs on the same three-part neurological loop, and once that loop is identified, it becomes possible to change what the habit does without ever having to erase the habit itself. His key concept is the habit loop. Cue, the trigger that tells the brain to switch into automatic mode. Routine, the behavior itself, physical, mental, or emotional. And reward, the payoff that tells the brain this particular loop is worth remembering next time. And Duhigg argues the routine is the only piece that's actually changeable. The cue and the reward can almost always stay exactly the same. A concrete example he gives. Duhigg breaks down his own afternoon cookie habit and discovers the real cue was boredom rather than hunger, and the real reward was a few minutes of socializing rather than the cookie itself. And once he swaps the cookie for a walk over to chat with a coworker, the craving disappears completely, because the actual cue and reward are still being satisfied. What makes this book different from Indistractable is that Eyal is diagnosing the uncomfortable internal trigger driving a single distraction, while Duhigg is mapping the entire mechanical loop underneath any habit, showing the real fix was never eliminating the trigger, it's swapping out the routine sitting between it and the reward. Link is in the description. Number 2. Atomic Habits by James Clear. Clear's core argument, built from his own recovery from a near-fatal injury that forced him to rebuild his life through small physical changes, is that habits were never really about the goals people set, they're about the identity people quietly decide they have, and every habit is a vote for the kind of person someone believes themselves to be. His key concept is the 4 laws of behavior change. Make it obvious. Make it attractive. Make it easy. And make it satisfying. And Clear argues these 4 laws work together as a single system for building a good habit, while inverting each one of them is the same reliable system for breaking a bad one. A concrete example he gives. Clear describes a man who wanted to lose weight and started walking to work instead of driving, but the real shift only happened once he began calling himself a healthy person instead of someone trying to lose weight. And once that identity changed, skipping the walk started to feel like a betrayal of who he now believed he was, not just a broken goal on a checklist. What makes this book different from The Power of Habit is that Duhigg is explaining the mechanical loop running underneath any single habit, while Clear is arguing that loop only survives long-term once it's wired to a deeper identity. Without that identity shift, even a well-designed loop tends to quietly unravel. Links in the description. And number 1. Thinking, Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. Unlike every other book on this list, this one isn't a habit book at all. It's a work of behavioral psychology, built from Kahneman's decades of research, alongside Amos Tversky, into the actual machinery deciding when the brain runs on autopilot and when it doesn't. Kahneman's central claim is that the mind runs on 2 systems, System 1, fast, automatic, and effortless, responsible for nearly every habitual behavior a person performs without ever consciously deciding to, and System 2, slow, deliberate, and easily exhausted, the exact system every habit book on this list is quietly trying to bypass. His key concept is cognitive ease. System 1 defaults to whatever feels familiar and requires the least effort. Which is exactly why a habit, once formed, stops feeling like a decision at all. It simply feels like the easiest available option in the room. A concrete example he returns to: judges deciding parole cases, a task that drains System 2 fast, grant parole far more often right after a meal than right before one, not because the cases themselves are any different. And Kahneman argues an exhausted, deliberate System 2 quietly hands control back to the automatic default of System 1, the exact same mechanism running every time a habit takes over during a stressful moment. What makes this book the definitive number one on this list is that every other title here is teaching you a method for installing or removing a single habit. Kahneman is explaining the underlying hardware, the two systems every single one of those methods is quietly negotiating with, whether the person using them realizes it or not. Link is in the description. The number one pick proves something simple. A method can tell you what habit to build. Only an understanding of which system is actually running the show tells you whether that habit survives the first hard day. Which of these have you read, and which one changed how you think about habits? Drop it in the comments.